Hey everybody, hope you're all doing well. Tonight we're going to be going over chapter 11. It's going to be more assembly stuff, and we're going to be covering some mates you used last week in chapter 10 and some new advanced mates. You probably won't see some of these or most of them on the CSWA, but they're good ones to know and just get a better feel for assemblies and how mates work, and just really build your skills. And it'll make doing the CSWA assemblies that much easier. So to start off, I'm going to be doing the rack and pinion mate problem, which is the first problem in chapter 11. So I just want to show you guys, it was a little tricky to open, some things you may not know. So I'm just going to go to File, Open here. You're going to need to download the zipped file full of all the models. You should have already done it for last week's homework. But there's a link in the very first couple pages of your book, and it'll say about this book, and there should be a link in there where you can go online to download the folder with all the files. So once you have it downloaded, right click on the folder after it downloads and click extract all. That'll create another folder and probably your downloads, and then you can get to it. So anyway, you want to go in that folder, it'll look like this. You've got all the chapters. Go to chapter 11. Go to the rack and pinion mates folder. You can see when I open it, I only have two parts in here. One's the rack and one's the gear. Down here in the right corner of the open window, there's a little button. So you want to toggle on assemblies as well. That's where you'll see the rack and pinion mates assembly. So open that. This will be the assembly file already with the two parts in it. They've already added a couple mates in here. So something I didn't show you guys last week that I want to show you this week. On your design tree, you guys have been using this. You know what's here, at least for parts. So in an assembly, all your parts that are in the assembly will show up here. So we've got our rack and our pinion. Below that is a little mates icon, and if you click the drop-down arrow there, this will show you all of the mates that are in this assembly. So you can see they've already put 4 of them in here for us. You could start with both the parts separate and make your own assembly if you want. You're going to have to figure out what these mates are, though. Just by hovering over it, you can see those planes are coincident, and those planes are coincident, and so on. So there's different mates they already have in here. And then also on the design tree, again, you have both your separate parts. If you click the drop down for the rack, and then there's a mates folder under that, you can drop that down, and you can see all the mates that apply to that part specifically. So if I close up the rack and open the gear here and look at mates, you can see the mates that apply specifically to that one. And so you may have some overlap between the two folders, but it's only going to show you the mates that part itself is associated with, at least if you're looking under the part. Now, if we minimize that again, go back to the mates right here at the very bottom, this is going to show all the mates in the whole assembly. So if you need, you can right click on them and click the edit feature button, just like we've done with everything else. And that's where you can change mates. If we click the check mark here and get it out of it, you can delete them from the design tree just like anything else. Okay, so that's where you find all your mates, and that's how you'd edit them or delete them or whatever you wanted to do. So I'm going to kind of just walk through this problem. That way you guys can see clearly what's going on here. So step 2 technically here. For step 1 was opening the assembly. Step 2, they want you to add a mate. So it looks like we're going to make the front ends of both parts coincident, okay? So in our design tree, first we're going to click mate here. We want to make a new mate. We can drop down the design tree on the side here like we've always done. And then we can actually go to each part specifically. So in our assembly, if we look here, there's a front, top, and right plane. Just like in a part file, these are the standard planes in the assembly. Each individual part has its own planes, though, from when we made that part itself in the part file. So if we drop down the rack here on our design tree, we go down, there's a front plane for the rack. You can see it highlight there. So we're going to click the front plane. And then I'm going to minimize the rack. You can see I still have the front plane selected over here for my mates. And I'm going to drop down the menu for the gear. And you can see there's a front plane there for the gear as well. And you can see it highlight on the screen. And so I'm going to select that. You can see the gear move over here, and it's now in line. The planes are in line. So that centers our parts together. So you can use surfaces of parts to do mates, or you can use any of the planes. Those work as well. You just have to access them from the design tree. So I'm going to click the check mark here. I wanted those to be coincident. And we've made our first mate. Next, I'm still in mate. I just accepted the first mate. So now I'm making a new one. It wants us to select the right planes for both components. So let's do that same way. I'll select the right plane for the gear. I'll minimize this. And I'll open up the rack. And I'm going to select the right plane for that as well. And we can see those align. Now it doesn't want us to make these coincident. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down here. You could select it on this shortcut window that pops up. Or you can scroll down and select it on the list. So I'm going to select it on the list here. I'm going to select parallel. So now that part didn't move over, but you can see the two planes highlighted here. These two planes, the right plane of both parts, are now parallel to each other. So we're going to click OK. And we're going to click OK one more time. We're going to exit mates. So now those are parallel. They'll stay parallel. The gear and the rack will stay in line with each other because we gave them a mate that made the front planes parallel or coincident. So those will stay in line. Technically, I should be able to move this. Let's see. Whoa. Moving right now. I should be able to move it. It made those parallel, but apparently it locked them like that. So let's see here. The next thing it wants you to do, this is going to be step 3, suppressing the mate. So what they actually want you to do, they had you make them parallel so that it would turn the wheel and orient it the way it wanted. And then what you're actually going to do here is suppress that. So it just wanted it to turn the gear to the right angle. And then what we're going to do is suppress that mate, that parallel mate, so that it doesn't actually exist. It's not going to work, or it's not going to control the parts. So what I did here, I'm going to the design tree. I'm going to go to the mates down here at the bottom. I'm going to drop that down, and then you can see the parallel mate that we just made. I'm going to click on it. I'm going to click, I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to click suppress right here. It's next to the edit feature button. I'm going to click suppress. So you'll see it gray out here, which means that mate is still there. We can turn it, we can unsuppress it and basically turn it back on if we want it to affect how the parts are mated together. But for now it's suppressed. So all we did is we got the gear here turned to the right orientation. So then we want to create a new mate. So we're going to select mate. We're going to, here you have your standard mates that we've used a lot. We're going to minimize that. And you can see mechanical mates here. So last week we did some advanced mates. This week we're going to use mechanical mates. So drop mechanical mates down. And it wants us to click the rack pinion button right here. Okay, so select that. And then one thing it wants you to make sure is that you have the toggle on for pinion pitch diameter. And then you also want to select reverse. That's important. Select reverse or this isn't going to work right, okay? So we'll scroll back up here. We need to select the rack and the pinion. So for the pinion, it wants us to select the construction circle going around the gear here. So we'll select, let's do the rack first. Here's the rack. So select this top edge here. We're going to zoom in. Nope, my zoom's not working. We'll select the top edge here, see it highlighted. And then for our pinion, we're going to select the construction circle around the gear. Okay. All we have to do is click OK. And then we're going to test it out here and see how this goes. So Should be able to drag it. See, you can see the wheel roll, or the gear roll, move, and the pinion moves. We can also just select the rack if we want. Slide the rack side to side and you can see the gear move. Now notice my teeth aren't lining up there. They tell you in here how to do it. If you have a collision, it says if there's a collision between the two components, suppress the rack and pinion mate, move the rack to create a gap, and then unsuppress the mate and try again. So again, on our design tree here under mates, here's my rack and pinion. Let's get this moved further down here. And actually let's unsuppress the rack and pinion. Or sorry, suppress the rack and pinion. Right click on it, click suppress up here. We're going to turn the parallel back on. So right click on parallel, click unsuppress. That'll orient it the way I want it. That basically gets the center line up and down vertically. And then let's see, I can move the rack. So then I'm going to zoom in here and I'm going to move the rack till it looks like it's right in the center of those teeth there. That looks pretty good. And then I'm going to suppress the parallel mate and then unsuppress the rack and pinion mate. And now parallel's off, rack and pinion's on, so this will stay in this position. Well, the gear will stay where it's supposed to. Everything's going to move, but you can see the teeth actually fall into the grooves just right now. Okay, nice and simple. So then, yeah, they just want you to test it out. They'll have you create a linear motion next. You guys don't need to do that. Feel free to skip that part. Just try these mates out, get this assembly put together correctly. And you go ahead and send me, for homework, send me this assembly file and send me the individual parts as well out of that chapter 11 folder that we got them from. Okay? Anyway, hope this helps. Feel free to ask me any questions. Thank you, guys.